and Senator Pia Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the distinguished sponsor who no one can debate with when it comes to boxing. We know that, we honor him, and we acknowledge all the pride he has brought to our country. With his permission, I would like to ask some questions. I would like to be educated by His Honor.
Yes, Mr. President, willingly, Mr. President. But before we start, Mr. President, I'll just have a short manifestation, Mr. President, for the record. Mr. President, nasa gitna tayo ng pandemya, ngunit kailangan nating paghandaan ang mga darating na hamon at oportunidad. We need to be proactive before we proceed. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa suporta ng ating mga co-authors, Senators Revilla, Majority Leader Zubere, Senator Tolentino, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Lacson, our Senate President Tito Soto, and Minority Leader Franklin Drilon. Thank you to all your support. We want to be ready when public gatherings and sports events will be allowed again. So kaya isinusulong po natin ang creation of Philippine Boxing and Combat Sports Commission dahil naniniwala po ako na napakalaki ng potential ng ating bansang Pilipinas na magiging boxing and combat sports capital in Asia. So, of Asia. So, yan po ang dahilan po, isa po sa mga dahilan na bakit ko isinusulong at itong Philippine Boxing Commission. Maraming salamat po. Salamat din doon sa aking kaibigan, uling Senator Pia Cayetano.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I start, mag-practice lang ko ng akong Bisaya kay kabalo na ako na daghan ang supporter ni Senator Manny Pacquiao from the Visayas and Mindanao na nag-support sa iya not just on this measure but on lots of measures. So I also want to extend my support sa ila and para magpakita na nag-effort man ko to understand. In the same way, nag-effort ko mag-Bisaya, nag-effort man ko makaintindi ng boxing. His Honor is the expert when it comes to this specific field, but I humbly submit, ginapresenta ko sa atong mga kababayan that we want to support all kinds of sports at kinahanglan nga klaro ang ato objective kung mag-pour in ta ng funds para sa isang sport. So on that note, I will proceed, Mr. President. So Mr. President, for the record lang, no, His Honor mentioned nga that of course i-promote niya ang boxing, that is one of the objectives here. But may I get clarity kung unsa man, what is the purpose of this bill versus the objective of the Games and Amusement Board under which boxing falls under currently. So currently, it's under GAB. So ang objective ng bill is to do what, Mr. President, that is different from GAB?
Yes, Mr. President, the intention, Mr. President, is to create a special commission to focus on boxing and combat sports. Yan po kasi I hope you understand of the situation of the boxers and all the combat sports situation na mahirap po talaga yung buhay ng bawat atleta. Buhay po nakataya at marami po akong experience na mga kasama ko na matay na dyan because of this sport. So kaya po ako nakaisip na mag-create ng Philippine Boxing Commission in Combat Sport dahil po para po magtutok lang po talaga at mag-focus sa commission na yan para maproteksyonan po ang ating mga atleta.
Okay, so ang pagkaintindi ko, my understanding is His Honor said mahirap ang buhay ng atleta. So with that general term, I totally can understand. naging athlete din ako, nothing of the same level as His Honor, but tumira din ako sa Rizal Memorial with my teammates. I was studying and training at the same time. And I know, depende sa bawat isa what their background is. Some had a much harder time than others. So yes, the general rule na mahirap ang buhay ng athlete, we understand. And then His Honor went on to say specifically ang boxers, and I'm not sure if His Honor was referring to mas mahirap ang buhay ng boxers because of injury. Is that because kung training lang siguro we won't argue, no? Lahat naman ng athletes pare-pareho naman naghihirap sa training, right? So di na siguro tayo mag-distinguish diyan unless His Honor wants to distinguish.
Yes,
In what
that's,
way na different ang handling dapat ng boxers or in combat sports?
yes, that's correct, Mr. President, na nakataya po lagi ang buhay ng isang boksingero o combat sports na pag lumalaban po, kahit sa preparation lang, talagang bumbugan na yung sparring lang for 2 months or 3 months, every other day, and then lalaban pa sa taas ng ring. Po masisigurado yung seguridad nila at protection nila. So I think this is the right idea. For me, based on my experience, I've been in this sport almost 30 years. So nakita ko kung anong sitwasyon ng ating mga atleta, especially boxing.
Okay. Kasi, Your Honor, I understand naman po kasi nung nagko-compete pa ako sa national team for volleyball, and then although sa age group na lang nagko-compete ako as a triathlete all over the world, never naman ako nanganib na my life will be at stake. So I understand naman ho na may difference. Natatakot lang ako na na hindi ko matapos yung karera, maubusan, ma-heat stroke, pero hindi naman mamatay. So, naiintindihan ko talaga yan. In fact, takot nga ho ako manood eh. Pag lumalaban kayo, sa totoo lang, nanonood na lang ako ng replay. Anantay ko na lang magsabi, ang mami ko ang biggest fan nyo sa family. Siguro lahat sila, pero ako takot lang manood. So, I just wait for my mom to text me, tapos manonood ako ng replay nyo. So, on that note, I understand, Mr. President, dear colleague. So, my question now is, given that, no, na talagang may high risk, there's a high risk that every boxer and combat sport athlete subjects himself to. Then my question is this not being addressed by GAB? Because that is the job of GAB. Is it not being addressed by GAB?
Not Mr. President. This move is not against GAB. We commend GAB, but we need to focus on this sport. Like I said, combat sport. Talagang napakahirap po talaga. Sana maintindihan nila dahil ako po halos buong buhay ko nandiyan sa sports ng boxing. At talagang hindi lang po isang kasama ko ang namatay sa boxing, sa larangan ng boxing. So, kaya ko po naisip itong commission na ito.
Well, kasi Your Honor, to be honest, that's the part I don't understand. His Honor says that this is nothing against GAB, and I believe him. But I do not understand why they cannot be allowed to continue doing their job. We must pinpoint why they are not doing their job well, because if I follow that logic, what is to prevent all the other sports that are considered dangerous sports in the world that we have athletes in forming their own commissions? I just need to understand why GAB is incapable of doing this job, because I also will do everything in my power to support the athletes. I think my record speaks for itself that I've been defending athletes left and right ever since I became a member of the legislative body. So I'd like to understand, bakit hindi kaya itong gawin ng GAB?
I understand, Mr. President. I know GAB handles too many sports. Ang dami pong hinandle nila, hinawakan nila. Ito pong boxing po kasi is kakaiba. Kailangan po ng focus dito kasi hindi po pwedeng magkamali. dito sa sports na to kasi buhay po ang nakataya. Like I said, marami na pong namatay na nawala na buhay dito sa larangan ng sport na to. Kailangan po natin ng ganitong commission dahil po para po nakapokus lang po talaga dito sa sport na to. Itong boxing combat sport.
Mr. President, I quote His Honor just now, no? Hindi pwedeng magkamali dito, buhay ang nakataya. I understand, Mr. President. I understand, truly. Pero my question remains, meron bang hindi ginawa ang GAB na nakasakit sa atleta? Meron ba silang pagkukulang na ikinamatay po ng boxers natin? Or even hindi kinamatay, ha? I will not wait for them to die. I am with you on that. Pero have put them in, yung nailagay sila sa alanganin, that not all the precautions that could be given to them, because it is a dangerous sport. It is a sport that sobrang paghahanga ko sa inyo na araw-araw nag-iensayo pa lang kayo, alam yung ang kakaharapin nyo is buhay nyo nakataya. Iba talaga yung paghanga ko sa atletang kayang gumawa ng ganyan. And that's why I also want to ensure your safety. When I say your, all the boxers and combat sports participants out there. But I need to know na saan nagkulang ang GAB para masabi natin na hindi pwedeng mailagay sila sa ganung lugar. Hindi pwedeng mapabayaan. Nagpabaya ho ba? Kasi magkikreate ho tayo ng bagong entity based on your bill. Gagastos tayo, and to put it bluntly, because of course, ayoko naman hong masyado tayong mahabang oras, no? Sa dami ng kailangan gawin during this time of COVID, nabanggit ko nga kanina sa mga senators na nandito, inaantay ko din sana na magkaroon ng Department of Waters dahil kung virus ang hinaharap natin today that has affected every single Filipino, the lack of water will also affect every single Filipino. I don't know if in half a decade, in when, but it will happen. At wala tayong Department of Water. And I don't believe it's a priority. So I'm just curious, every time I hear that there will be a new agency, magtatanong talaga ho ako. Dahil marami akong nakikitang agencies na kailangang itayo, and I feel that it is only responsible for each one of us to ensure that with the limited resources we have, mailagay talaga natin yon sa ikabubuti ng karamihan. Not to deprive anyone. And that's why nagbuhos tayo ng pondo sa National Academy of Sports. And His Honor supported that also. So ito, boxing lang. Boxing and the many boxers. I say lang only because I mean one sport, not to diminish it. So for the boxers only and for their protection, yes, I support. But how? What difference? Kasi nga, you have to tell me, His Honor, I want to know saan hindi nakadeliver ang GAB. Kailan na ilagay sa peligro ang buhay ng mga atleta dahil sa pagkukulang ng GAB. Dahil sabi niyo nga, marami silang sports na iniintindi. So kailan sila hindi nakapagbigay ng tamang guidance, tamang support? Kasi nakita ko naman yung mga rules na sinusundan nila, yung mga registration requirements, yung licensing, yung pre-game submissions, nakita ko naman na may ganon. So gusto ko lang maintindihan, hindi ba nila na-implemento ng maayos? Kaya kailangan tayo gumawa ng another body?
Mr. President, my point is hindi naman doon sa hindi nila kayang doon. Pero ang sinasabi ko lang naman dito, Mr. President, ang in-explain ko is yung marami silang hinahandle na sports. So itong boxing kasi kakaibang sports ito na kailangan mong mag-focus at pagtuunan ng pansin na walang iba kung inaatupag o inesikaso kundi boxing lang at itong combat sport lang. So yan po yung sentiment ko. Ako hindi naman ako gagawa ng ganitong batas kung hindi ko experience yan, kung hindi ko naramdaman yan. Yan po yung sentiment ko as a boxer.
Yes, and Your Honor, we understand His Honor's sentiment and passion, pero we have to base our decisions on facts. So kaya ako humihingi ng facts na saan ho nagkulang ang GAB? Kasi I want them to be accountable kung may pagkukulang sila, because if His Honor's new creation will, and I will, that's one of my next questions, will require a certain amount of funding, unless wala hong pondong kailangan dito, iba namang usapan yon. We need to know kasi ho, we are, ang tagal ho natin dineprive ang mga Filipino athletes of a world-class stadium. Finally nabigay natin, pero ang makikinabang doon ang daming iba-ibang sports, di ba? So ngayon, ang makikinabang dito, boxers and combat sports participants. But so far hindi niyo nasasabi kung ano ba yung hindi nabibigay sa kanila. Kasi ho, I hope you understand, pero andito si Senator Gatchalian, gagamitin ko na lang siyang example. Tatawa siya. Nung ini-interpolate ko din yung bill niya sa special education, ganon din ho yung mga tanong ko na sasabihin natin na magdi-deliver tayo ng ganito sa mga nanay ng mga batang pinanganak na may kapansanan. Mag-e-expect ho sa atin 'yan. Siguraduhin natin na yung ipapangako natin kaya natin ibigay, at saka bakit natin tinatanggal sa isang grupo ilalagay sa ibang grupo. That has to be justified, Your Honor, kasi otherwise nagpapalit lang ho ba tayo ng tao? Yun lang ho ba yung issue doon? Leadership lang? Hindi ko talaga kailangan ho factual yung basis natin to remove the powers over one sport and create another agency altogether. I mean, the creation of new agencies has to be always justified because there's never enough resources. And
Thank
nabanggit
you.
ko nga yung tubig. Wala nga tayong Department of Water. Tapos paghihiwalayin natin yung nag-aasikaso ho ng athletes natin based on one particular sport. So, kailangan ko ho lang maintindihan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, for explaining that. It's clear to me. Ngayon, hindi naman kasi pinipigilan ko lang yung sarili ko, baka sabihin sinisiraan ko yung GAB. GAB, malaking naitulong sa sport, sa boxing, especially boxing. Ito po yung experience ko na marami pong nag-retire na boxer na wala pong natanggap na pension, wala pong benepisyo na natanggap sa GAB. Yun po yung ibig kong sabihin, isa na po yan sa mga especially insurance, pension. Nag-retire sila, walang mga pension, walang kawawa sila. Yun po, isa na po yun sa mga, hindi ko lang po isa siguro, baka sabihin nila, talagang sinisira ko yung GAB. Maganda naman yung ginawa ng GAB. Pero ang ibig kong sabihin, yung makapokus sila sa boxing.
So, Mr. President, is His Honor saying na dito sa bill niya, one of the key provisions is to provide them for a pension or some kind of retirement pension? Is that the objective?
Yes, that's the one of the objective, Mr. President. Pension at saka protection, insurance.
So bakit hindi na lang natin ibuhos yung pera para dun nga sa benefits na yon? Kasi kung walang pagkukulang ang GAB sa implementation ng kanilang tungkulin, like is it in the law now that they provide for a pension? Because if it is and they're not complying with it, then we hold them accountable. We find out why. But if it's not, and I'm not aware that it is, please point it out to me, then that's not they're not liable for that, but that's a provision that we can support easily, as opposed to creating another entity.
Not only that, Mr. President, also provide a pension and healthcare benefits, Mr. President. Nasa Section 16 po yan sa bill na ito. Mababasa po yan doon yung social pension and healthcare benefits. Doon po yan.
Okay. So again, I ask my question, Mr. President. If this is what is important to His Honor, and GAB has not failed in implementing the law, then why not create a law, or even if by way of healthcare, we don't need a law for that. We can I think we can do that by way of MOA, and I think there is something in the works. Okay, there's an existing MOA apparently according to Gab with the DOH for the medical services, no? Yung sa pension, iba yan. We might have to create that by law. Then that's what we create, the pension by law, and not another entity, because until now, I still haven't heard the reason why it has to be removed from Gab, because they seem to be compliant with what their obligations are. And we can create that law providing for the pensions and whatever other security that a boxer or combat art athlete needs.
Mr. President, the proposed measure has a similar situation with Pelracom due to the complexity of horse racing. There was a need to add more focus on the sport. Former President Marcos issued PD 420 to create the Philippine Horse Racing Commission, which has different functions from the GAB. And po ang pinagkaiba, Mr. President. In 2018, GAB only released a total amount of 15,000 from the Boxers Welfare Fund. Promoters would be forced to pay the medical expenses of their boxers under their stable because the claiming procedure was stringent and the assistance given was minimal, Mr. President. It would range from 2,000 to 5,000 only, Mr. President.
Mr. President, may I ask His Honor to educate me? What is the life of a professional boxer like in terms of their livelihood? I am only familiar with amateur athletes who receive an allowance, and then I'm quite familiar with professional athletes in other fields like runners, triathletes. They usually have sponsors who give them fixed amount, maybe cover certain expenses. So how is it in boxing? Is there a sharing of their winnings? How does it work? Is there a group of investors who will invest in them and not earn anything and hope that they have a winning boxer? And then how does it work? Kindly educate this representation.
Ang boxer, Mr. President, binabayaran, may premium siya every fight, and then pero nagbabayad siya ng licensing, commission, percentage, and then medical payments, lahat nagbabayad. At ang problema lang, Mr. President, I'm hoping yung mga ibang mga professional boxer pag retire may tumutulong sa kanila, may benepisyo sila na matanggap. Kaya po itong napaka-importante itong ito. Dahil po para po kahit paano hindi naman po lahat maging Manny Pacquiao eh. Ang ibig ko sabihin po lahat ng Manny Pacquiao ang lahat ng boxers. Kung dito po yung naging champion, lahat po yan nag-retire sa boxing, mahihirap po at baldado, lahat walang pension, walang benefits na nakukuha. So yun pong reason doon. Ang pinapaintindi ko. I'm not attacking GAP or anything. Pinapaintindi ko yung situation ko because that's my experience in life na sa boxing career ko. I'm 42 years old now, turning 43, and I started boxing 12 years old. So, siguro, mahigit sa kalahati sa buhay ko, na-boxing ako. So, I know the situation of boxers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, ito bang mga request nyo na ilapit nyo sa GAB at tinanggihan kayo? Or tinanggihan or walang action?
Mr. President, automatic, the GAB will oppose the creation of Philippine boxing.
No, not the creation, Mr. President. The reasons why you are creating. The reasons you're creating is you're saying that the life of the athletes are always in danger, and therefore you want to protect them more. You want them to have more health protection. You want them to have retirement benefits. So My question is, those are very tangible actions that the Boxing Commission intends to take. Am I correct? To provide those benefits that His Honor mentioned, right?
Mr. President, this concern, magmula pa ito noon pang hindi pa ako champion. Itong mga concern sa mga boxers na ito, mula pa nung panahon pa, siguro 2 dekada na.
Hindi kaya nga, Mr. Presidente, since nandiyan nga po kayo to champion the rights and the welfare of the boxers, nasabi niyo ho ba sa GAB itong mga suggestions niyo, mga request niyo at tinanggihan ho ba ito? Na ay hindi natin pwedeng bigyan ng more protection ang boxers, hindi natin pwedeng dagdagan ng benefits nila, wala tayong mabibigay. Ganun ho ba yun? That's why we want to now create a new commission?
Hindi kami nag-usap ng GAB, Mr. President.
So yun, so mababalik ho ako doon. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Hindi kami nag-usap ng GAB about talking about the plan for protection of the boxers, ganyan. Ito po yung itong sinusulong ko po, experience po ito, hindi po ito pinagplanuhan o iniisip ng mabuti, kundi based on our experience as a boxer.
Yes, Your Honor, but Your Honor is now putting forward his ideas and experience as a boxer, now as a senator. And doon din ho ako pumapasok kasi binabalance ko din po yung aking passion, experience as an athlete kasi kung ako lang din, lahat din ang pwede kong gawin as an athlete, ginagawa ko din. Pero as a senator, I then have to take a step back, sometimes think about it and decide how I can support the athletes, grassroots sports, in the context of all the other issues that confront us in the Senate. So in that sense, ho yung mga line of questions ko. So ito ho bang commission na balak niyong itayo because nga it's your experience and there is no argument dun sa experience niyo po. I totally understand, appreciate, and believe His Honor's experience. I just still don't understand why it cannot be delivered by GAB, which is the entity that is tasked by law to deliver it. I've been a senator and sat through I don't know, maybe 4 or maybe even 5 chairpersons of the Philippine Sports Commission. Ang experience ko po more of sa Philippine Sports Commission, hindi ho sa GAB. And for the life of me, I've disagreed with many of them most of the time. Most of the time, many times, hindi ako kontento sa trabaho nila, hindi ako kontento sa support na binibigay nila sa athletes. But I never considered putting another agency because I truly believe in the system that perhaps the next leader, the sense of leadership, would do a better job. And in many times, they do a better job, pero may bagong issue na naman na hindi rin ako kontento. Siguro that's why nandito tayo because we're always pushing the bar. We expect more. So doon naman ho ako nanggagaling na ako, I can pinpoint reasons why I would like to, bigyan ko kayo ng example. Gusto ko tanggalin sa Philippine Sports Commission kahit anong authority nila over certain athletes, particular student athletes, kasi nagkakagulo yung schools and yung pagka magaling na sila, they'll represent the country and they become a national team athlete, they fall under PSC. May ano na yan, may away na yan sa jurisdiction. Tapos that same athlete, naging professional player. So 3 na humahatak sa kanya, yung school niya, well, hindi pa PBA, next step pa yon. Pero yung lumiligaw sa kanya, tapos yung national team, ano na siya, torn. And here I am, just like you, Your Honor, trying to figure out how can we protect them in the best way. And at the end of the day, in as much as I would have wanted to create another agency, I did not because would not really solve the problems. Kasi nga, hindi mo sa-solve ng ganon. And that's why I just feel very strongly na dapat napipinpoint natin kung ano yung hindi na-deliver ng agency na in charge bago tayo mag-create ng bago. Kasi paano kung wala na si Manny Pacquiao? maybe under his, not maybe, I am certain with his honor's leadership and inspiration, marami kayong magagawa for that commission. Paano kung wala na si Manny Pacquiao? Or if you're busy with some other things, which his honor clearly has proven to get involved in many other things beyond boxing for the benefit of the Filipino people, di ba?
Susan.
Mr. President, I just want to clarify also, GAB is on regulation of the sports. We need to focus on promotion of the sports so we can be Asia's capital. GAB is regulating matches only. We want to also give focus on promotion of the sports, especially boxing in combat.
Eh sana ho, can his honor, can I give his honor more time to point out what is his wish list from GAB to say that ito dapat ang nagagawa at hindi nagagawa? Kasi ho, we will pour in very scarce resources to create this boxing commission. May I know his honor what is the targeted or estimated budget to create this commission?
Based on a TWG, Mr. President, is a prerogative of the DBM.
Pero siguro dapat may estimate po tayo kasi
The only estimate, I think, Mr. President, for the start, it will cost 100 million to 150 million, around that, to establish the offices, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
So, Mr. President, sa sinabi niyong between 100 to 150 million, yan na ho yung buong budget ng GAB. So, that's something that should be very clear to all of us, no? Because pagdating ho 3 months from now, when we will be debating, less than 3 months, we will start having hearings on the national budget. Sa galing ho ng ating chairman of the Committee on Finance, hindi niya pa rin mabigay ho lahat ng hinihingi kong budget for DepEd, for health. Hindi ho tayo maka-roll out ng ating consulta package, yung out of hospital na care na kailangan ng mga tao. Itong education facilities and personnel needed for children with special needs. Kulang na kulang po ho ang budget natin for that. So I just have to mention it, Mr. President, because every single one of us have to be conscious na money doesn't flow. May pagkukunan ho yan, may mawawala. May pagkukunan. So yung budget ho na hinihingi natin for boxing, buong budget na ho ng GAB yun. And for the record, from what I know, ang hinahandle ng GAB is 17, 18 sports. Tama ba to or more than 18? Kasi hindi, letter A kasi says traditional sports such as, so may list yan. And then it goes on to say figure skating. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong list. Sorry.
20, Mr. President, I think.
20, okay.
That's wrong, 20.
So, Your Honor, and I mean, I don't mean anything but to ask the question that has to be asked. That budget for combat sports alone is equivalent to the entire budget of GAB for all the other sports. Paano natin ma-justify yun?
Mr. President, I just say that for the start, because mag-establish pa ng mga offices sa Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, kaya po prerogative po ng DBM dahil bababa po yan pag ma-establish na ma-put up na yung mga offices sa Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Mr. President, from what I know, can His Honor spread into the record, did DBM express their support for this bill?
Yes, we took account on their suggestion, Mr. President, that DBM, yung silang magbabudget ng boxing. That's why wala pong amount na nababanggit po dahil sila po ang magdedetermine kung magkano pong budget ng Philippine boxing.
Mr. President, that's not what I know. To repeat, what you're saying is, sabi ng DBM silang magbabudget. Pero ang alam ko, ang sabi nila, yung proposals under the Boxing Commission are already inherently or currently being undertaken by the different offices or units of the PSC and GAB. So they're saying that it's a duplication. Hindi ho nila sinabi na silang magbabudget. So magkaiba ho yatang intindi natin. Could you kindly clarify for me?
Mr. President, they sent a letter to my office and we took their suggestion. Nandito naman po yung mga suggestion nila at hindi naman po namin nilapag yung suggestion nila dun sa pinadala nilang note.
Ano ba yung suggestion nila? Kasi yung sa akin pong notes, nakalagay dito that they said na redundant ho ang creation. So ang ibig sabihin nun, hindi sila nagsusupport ng creation ng Boxing Commission.
Sabi po, generally compliant.
Mr. President, can we have a 1-minute suspension for to review my note from DBM?
Session suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President.